dedicated to Swami Vivekananda, and the other three, sung by both Sanchita and Gaurav, were songs which were actually sung by Swamiji. So we had five beautiful songs to begin the celebrations of the Janmatithi of Swami Vivekananda. So today we will just a minute, please. Yeah. Today we, after this wonderful beginning, musical beginning, Swami Vivekananda, as you all know, was a great lover of music. So we thought it would be befitting if we begin the session today by these wonderful songs. Now, coming to the life and message of Swami Vivekananda, we all know that when the first edition of complete works of Swami Vivekananda was published in somewhere around 1910, which comprised of only 4 volumes. Now we have many more materials available, so the number of volumes has swelled to 9. We have a 9-volume edition of complete works of Swami Vivekananda. But in those days, when in 1910, when Mayavati Advaita Ashrama brought out the first edition, only material enough for 4 volumes of the complete works was available, and which was ably edited by Swami Virajanandji and Mother Savior, who helped to build the Mayavati Advaita Ashrama, who was inspired by Swami Vivekananda, by his message, universal message of Advaita Vedanta, and his desire to start a monastery where truth and truth alone will be worshipped. So that's how Mayavati Advaita Ashrama came into existence, and this was the ashrama where the universal message of Swami Vivekananda, which was recorded because of the efforts of many people, including the famous shorthand disciple, the shorthand typist, who was also known as Josiah Goodwin, who became a lifelong admirer and disciple of Swamiji. So he was the one who recorded all the conversations after his meeting with Swami Vivekananda, when he was accompanying him not only in America but England and later on in India. All the valuable speeches that Swami Vivekananda gave were recorded by Goodwin. But for him, we would not have these complete works. So these complete works, as they are available now to us, they have a foreword which is still there. The foreword to these complete works, the 9 volumes as they are now, but in the 4 volumes that were first published, Sister Nivedita wrote a beautiful foreword. The name of that foreword is now available in the complete works of Sister Nivedita also, because that is part of her writings. She has written many things. There's one important book which she wrote. She was requested by the direct disciples of Swamiji that she should write a life of Swami Vivekananda, because everybody was thinking that it's such a difficult task to write a biography of Swami Vivekananda. Of course, afterwards, the Eastern and Western disciples together wrote a volume, published 2 volumes. Now they are available in 2 volumes. So the detailed biography of Swami Vivekananda was written much later, but Master, as I saw him, was one of the first books to appear, and it was Sister Nivedita who wrote this book. So we have decided today we will make a good beginning. We will discuss the Master and his message, a foreword to the complete works of Swami Vivekananda written by Sister Nivedita. And from next week onwards, we had one spare day. As you all know, we are having classes on almost all the days from Tuesday to Sunday, but Monday was left out. And we decided, because we are covering Swami Vivekananda's Raj Yoga, but we are not discussing his life. So we thought that we will take up the book, the immortal book, The Master as I Saw Him. That is the master or her guru, Swami Vivekananda, as Sister Nivedita saw him. So it will be a tribute to both Swami Vivekananda and his disciple who dedicated her entire life to the cause of Swami Vivekananda, to the mission of Swami Vivekananda, you can say. So the master and his message as it appears in the complete works of Swami Vivekananda as a foreword and later on as part of her complete works, which are also published in 4 volumes. So she begins this beautiful introduction, which will give us an idea of what Swami Vivekananda did. Without going into the biographical details of Swami Vivekananda's life, we'll directly go to the impact he had on the entire world, especially India. So that would be a fitting tribute to him on this auspicious day of his Janmatithi, his birth according to the Indian calendar. So she begins the message by saying, in the 4 volumes of the works of Swami Vivekananda, which are to compose the present edition, that is the first edition, we have what is not only a gospel to the world at large. So Swami Vivekananda's message was universal, and it was a universal gospel meant for the entire world. But apart from that, specifically she says, but it is not only a gospel to the world at large, but also to its own children. The charter of Hindu faith. This is very significant. When Sister Nivedita says, his complete works are a charter of the Hindu faith. So what did she mean by that? What Hinduism needed in those days when she was colonized by the British, and later on, before that, a lot of invasions took place and the very survival of Hinduism was at stake. So somebody had to come and rescue Hinduism, and that is what Swami Vivekananda did. Chakravarti Rajgopalachari was the first Governor General of India after the British, the independent India, wrote that Vivekananda saved Hinduism. What did he mean by that? Sister Nivedita answers. He says he gave a universal gospel because Hinduism, by its very nature, is a universal gospel. It's universal in nature. It's not restricted to India or the Indian subcontinent. Hinduism is also known as Sanatana Dharma. So that is what Sister Nivedita saw in Swami Vivekananda's interpretation of Hinduism. That was a true representation of the Sanatana Dharma. So Swami Vivekananda, what did he do? According to Nivedita, what Hinduism needed in those days when things were really bad. This was written in 1910 when we were not yet free. India was not politically free. But Hinduism continued to flourish as it has happened in the past. No matter which political empire was ruling India, the vitality of Sanatana Dharma, which is also now known as Hinduism, the true Hinduism, always sustained itself by the power of these great souls, these great prophets, incarnations like Sri Ramakrishna and his disciple who took that message of Hinduism as interpreted, lived the message of Vedanta, universal Vedanta, which he took all over the world. But what was the need? What did Swami Vivekananda do specifically for India or maybe for Hinduism? What Hinduism needed amidst the general disintegration of the modern era, according to Nivedita, was a rock where she could lie at anchor. You all know Swami Vivekananda himself says, when he introduces his master, There is a beautiful booklet which he published on the birthday of Sri Ramakrishna after his passing away, which is known as Hinduism and Sri Ramakrishna. So what was the role of Sri Ramakrishna in reviving Hinduism? That is the theme of that small pamphlet that he published. How did he revive Hinduism? Not just by combining together all the different sects which were quarreling with each other. In those days, it was so difficult to define Hinduism. So he found in his master, at the end of this master and his message, Sister Nivedita will mention it, that the three influences which defined Swamiji's message were his Guru, that is Sri Ramakrishna, the Shastras, and the motherland India. So these three forces, these three notes of the universal music of Vivekananda's life was resulted in the music of his message. The music of Swami Vivekananda's message is made of three notes. One is the Shastras, which form the eternal principles of Hinduism. Second is his Guru, Sri Ramakrishna, who lived those eternal principles in his own life. And finally, his motherland, the land which gave birth to this eternal religion. So, Sister Nivedita aptly says what Hinduism needed amidst the general disintegration of the modern era. Modern era had brought about such a confusion in the minds of people. Atheism, the scientific spirit, was trying to corrode the very roots of religion, different religions, not only in Europe but all over the world. Religion was practically threatened by the influence of the atheistic wave which came about by science, by the developments in Renaissance in science and technology. So all religions, including Hinduism, needed a rock where she could lie at anchor, an authoritative utterance in which she might recognize her true self. So, as Swami Vivekananda pointed out, when there was a big conflagration of different sects within narrow dogmatic ideas within Hinduism, trying to defeat each other, quarrel with each other, giving an idea of disunity among the proponents of the Sanatana Dharma. The Sanatana Dharma, which was based on eternal principles, was reduced to a veritable inferno, a fire, a conflagration. These are the words of Swami Vivekananda in this small booklet, Hinduism and Sri Ramakrishna. There he says, what was needed? A person, an incarnation who could, a great universal personality who could combine or try to harmonize or synthesize, that is a better word, synthesize all the different aspects or the sects of Hinduism and try to find out what is its core. The core values had to be revived out of this conflagration. It had to be rescued. So that is exactly what Swami Vivekananda did in the West, and also all his speeches that he gave, the lectures from Colombo to Almora. And Sister Nivedita says this was given to Hinduism, a great gift in these words and writing of Swami Vivekananda. For the first time in history, remember, the emphasis she has placed on these words. For the first time in history, as has been said elsewhere, Hinduism itself forms here the subject of generalization of a Hindu mind of the highest order, one of the greatest mind that Hinduism has ever produced. He tries to generalize. Hinduism is generalized into certain principles which he defined as the eternal religion, the Sanatana Dharma, for ages to come. Now, this is what Sister Nivedita is predicting. She says, for ages to come, the Hindu man, any Hindu who is born a Hindu, who would verify, the Hindu mother who would teach her children what was the faith of their ancestors, will turn to the pages of these books for assurance and light. So she's predicting that this complete works long after the English language has disappeared from India. still the gift that has here been made through this language to the entire world. That is what Swami Vivekananda said when he came to England, that because this language is universally spoken, this is a fit vehicle for my message, eternal message of the Vedanta, which I am delivering, inspired by the life and message of Sri Ramakrishna. So Sister Nivedita says that long after English ceases to be a dominating language in India, it might a day might come when, like all other countries, there might be a national language which will be so predominant. But still, she says, it is the English language, the gift that Swami Vivekananda gave to the entire world. It is a gift to India through that language to the world, will remain and bear its fruit in East and West alike. So she is, because the whole complete works, most of the talks, except a few translations from Bengali, like East and the West, which forms part of the complete works, and some Bengali letters which have been translated into English, a majority of the utterances and the material of the complete works is in English. So Sister Nivedita here seems to be saying that long after English language ceases to be the dominant language of India, which she is trying to do after her independence, every nation would like to have its own language, anyway, a national language with which they can identify. So even if that happens, Sister Nivedita says, the gift he gave in this wonderful English language to the entire world will inspire people both. It will bear its fruit in the East and West alike. That's why we find, though there have been many translations of the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, practically in every Indian language, and some of his works have been translated into several foreign languages as well. But still, the gift he gave through this English language, according to Nivedita, will bear its fruit both in the East and the West. Then she says, what Hinduism needed at that time was the organizing and consolidating of its own idea. What was the chief idea? What was the core idea of Hinduism? The core idea of Sanatana Dharma. That was, the need was there for somebody to spell it out. What the world needed was a faith that had no fear of truth. If you can adhere to truth, as Swami Vivekananda said, truth is the only politics I believe in. Somebody asked him about political freedom, about politics in general, about economy, about the isms, about the system of politics that India should adopt. He said, I don't believe, I don't depend on politics, because he says, the only politics I believe in is truth. So the world needed, he says, as long as you hold on to the core of Hinduism or the core of Sanatana eternal religion, which is truth, then you don't have to fear. That was the motto with which he started the Advaita Ashrama in the Mayavati, in Mayavati, in the Himalayas. So this ashrama, according to him, will worship truth and truth alone, pure truth of the eternal religion of the Hindus, without any sectarian approach, without any dogmatic approach, pure truth, pure principles which will be lived in harmony with nature. That was the idea behind the starting of Advaita Ashrama. Now he says, now she says, Sister Nivedita, in the Master and his message, she says, both a faith that had no fear of truth and consolidation of the idea of Hinduism, both can be found in the complete works. So she says, both are found in the pages of these complete works. Then she says, nor could any greater proof had been given of the eternal vigor of Sanatana Dharma. These are the words she used. The eternal vigor, the proof that eternal Sanatana Dharma has retained its vigor, the eternal vigor which she always was endowed with, that is still there. So that was the proof that every time the religion is threatened, a prophet comes and revives it, rejuvenates it. Of the fact that India is as great in the present as ever in the past. Now remember, when Sister Nivedita wrote this, we were considered to be a country enslaved by a colonial power. So naturally, people who think political domination is the only domination possible in the world, they will understand by this sentence of Nivedita that India was great, is great, and will be great because of its holding on to this eternal or Sanatana Dharma. And then he says that is the proof. This, the rise of the individual who at the critical moment gathers up and voices the communal consciousness. So she says, this individual, the man whose life life and message I am trying to describe now or summarize now, is a voice that comes at the critical moment, at a critical juncture of Indian history, gathers up the voices of the communal consciousness and spells it out in the language of the colonial England. So he uses the very language which was imposed upon India to give that universal message. That is the true character of Hinduism. Hinduism never bothered the core principles, the Sanatana Dharma, never bothered, because they knew the principles, if they are eternal, they will survive, no matter which political power is ruling India. There were so many political changes in India throughout her long history, right from the day of the Vedas. There were so many kings, so many faiths, so many invasions. Politically, perhaps India was invaded, and culturally also some kind of domination was attempted on the eternal religion. But somehow the eternal religion had the internal vigor to prop up individuals like Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, to gather the communal consciousness of the nation, which was hidden in the common masses, and spell it out to the entire world. Then she says in the next paragraph that India should have found her own need satisfied only in caring to the humanity outside her borders. The bread of life is what might have been foreseen. So India has always taken her eternal values and spread it, broadcast to the entire world through different channels. Trade was one of the channel, preaching was one of the channel. Buddha was born in India, took these eternal values across its borders, and no matter who ruled India, the silent influence of the eternal principles of the spirit found its way from India to the entire subcontinent and also the entire world in various ways through such great personalities, these great incarnations who appeared in this country again and again. So nor did it happen on this occasion for the first time. So she admits that it's not that Swami Vivekananda is the first preacher of this message, the universal message of Sanatana Dharma. It was once before, in sending out to the sister lands this message of a nation making faith, that India learnt as a whole to understand the greatness of our own thought, a self-unification that gave birth to modern Hinduism itself. So she says in the previous occasions also it was there, that several great prophets, great people took this message across the subcontinents in a silent way, directly or indirectly. But never may we allow it to be forgotten that on Indian soil first was heard the command from a teacher to his disciples, "Go ye out all into the world and preach the gospel to every creature," the gospel of the universal spirit, the gospel of Sanatana Dharma. It's not some kind of conversion that was implied. The essence of Hinduism, the universal ideas of Hinduism, is just like the universal ideas of material civilization, the scientific ideas, the scientific truths, the technology which was developed with science as the basis, the principles of truth which Europe or maybe even India and all the other countries of the world, they found in the physical world is common property of all. You can't say science belongs to a particular nation. So we should remember that just as the scientific spirit and the scientific values have become universal, Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma always believed that truth is not the monopoly of any nationality, any culture. Though it might have had its origin in India, just as science had its origin in several countries. Of some of them, maybe it was Greece, where the scientific spirit was first, where the study of nature assumed a scientific um, approach. A scientific approach was used to study nature, and that developed into the different sciences and arts and the technology which Europe developed, and tried with that, the power of which they tried to at least physically have control over the entire world. It is the development of science and technology, the following of truth, but that was in the gross field. But in Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma did the same thing, but in the field of the spirit. So just as the materialism, the ideas of scientific materialism spread all over the world and created the world order as it is now, it was the eternal message of all the prophets before Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna, which the teacher gave to his disciple, whoever that teacher may be. Go ye out into the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Just as Jesus asked his disciple to spread his message of the Spirit all over the world. But just as in any other country, the underlying truth behind the universal message of Sanatana Dharma now and then seems to get lost in some kind of fanatic dogma, rituals, and other things. It is then when somebody has to come to revive it, and that role Swami Vivekananda played. So he says, Swami, it was expressed in the lips, but it came out through the lips of Swami Vivekananda, as Nivedita says. She's quoting Swami Vivekananda here. She says, if one religion be true, then all the others also must be true. Thus, the Hindu faith is as much yours as much as mine. So that's what Swami Vivekananda declared, and that impressed Nivedita. That's why she says, when one says that this Hinduism, which Swami Vivekananda defined, is not the monopoly of Hindus alone. It is as much yours as much as mine. That's what he said. And in the amplification of the same idea, she quotes another, in another place, Swamiji says, we do not merely tolerate. This was what Swami Vivekananda said in the West on many occasions, including the Parliament of Religions. He said, we Hindus, I mean the people who follow Hinduism truly and follow the Sanatana Dharma, eternal, they never believe in toleration alone. That I will tolerate you. You may be an alien religion or an alien human being, aligned to my country. You may have come from any part of the world, but you are accepted here. We do not merely tolerate. We Hindus, these are Swamiji's words quoted by Nivedita. He says, we Hindus do not merely tolerate. We unite ourselves with every religion. This is something which will save the entire world. It is so difficult to understand this message. We all want world peace. We want everybody to live in harmony with each other, but it will be possible only and only if this spirit has been accepted. We Hindus do not merely tolerate. We unite ourselves with every religion, praying in the mosque of the Mohammedan, worshipping before the fire of the Zoroastrian, and kneeling to the cross of the Christian. And she continues, she quotes Swami Vivekananda, we know that all religions alike, from the lowest fetishism to the highest absolutism, the Advaita, are but so many attempts of the human soul to grasp and realize the infinite. So we gather all these flowers and binding them together, with a cord of love, make them into a wonderful bouquet of worship. This is a wonderful paragraph she is quoting from Swamiji's complete works. So this is the whole message of Swami Vivekananda. He says, he amplifies the idea that if one religion is true, it was his, of course, his master's idea, Sri Ramakrishna's idea, that if one religion is true, all paths, all religions are but different paths leading to the same goal. So this he did by practicing each one of them himself, not as a professor or an academician trying to study comparative religion and defining all these universal principles. It may be fine when it comes to academic discussions, but when it comes to real transformation of the individual, or when it comes to real living those principles, Sri Ramakrishna showed the way. And Swami Vivekananda, inspired by the message, universal message of Hinduism as lived by Sri Ramakrishna, not just preached, but he saw with his through his own eyes, he perceived, he saw a demonstration of the truth that if one religion be true, then all religions are true. So thus the Swamiji said in one place that Hinduism, the Hindu faith, is yours as much as mine, provided you accept. The fact is that I may say that Hinduism is a faith which is universal, but that universal heart or that universal love, if it is not there, then one may not embrace this idea and consider Hinduism as a universal spirit. So that heart has to be there. That's why Swami Vivekananda again clarifies what he said. He said, we Hindus do not merely tolerate. We unite ourselves with every religion. We even pray in the mosque. There's no problem for a Hindu, a true Hindu, to do all these things, because we are worshipping that same infinite spirit. That is what Sanatana Dharma has taught us, and that is why it lives to this day. It is surviving all the onslaughts because it has held on to these principles, and that is what Swami Vivekananda says. You can sacrifice everything, but don't sacrifice this idea of universality. That is the vitality of Hinduism, and that is what made Hinduism survive in spite of so many political conquests. Nothing could destroy Hinduism only because Hindus do not merely tolerate, but we unite ourselves with every religion. And he goes to the extent of saying, which his master did, praying in the mosque of the Mohammedan, worshipping before the fire of the Zoroastrian, and kneeling to the cross of the Christian. And of course, there are Buddhists and other Jewish people and other religion. We not only believe, we know that all religions are alike, and there are so many different attempts made by different cultures, different nationalities, to grasp and realize the infinite truth. So he says these are different flowers. These different religions are different flowers, and binding them together with the cord of love, you have to make a beautiful bouquet of worship. And that is how you truly worship your God. Whichever God you believe in, it is only through these universal principles, which are spelt out by all the prophets and all the great universal spirits in the world. It is only when we gather all the different ideas, the different flowers, and make a beautiful bouquet for worship, then only you will be really defining this Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism. To the heart of this speaker means Swami Vivekananda, Nivedita says, nobody was a foreigner or alien. For him, there existed only humanity and truth. So truth and humanism, or truth and humanity, is the only thing, only politics I believe in. So Swami Vivekananda's message today, when the world is torn by conflict, when everywhere we see intolerance in the name of religion, intolerance in the name of nationality, intolerance in the name of ethnicity, intolerance in the name of color, caste, creed, and religion, so many intolerances which are leading to world conflict, and people are trying to do some patchwork and maintain peace just by accepting each other. Swami Vivekananda said that is not going to result in everlasting peace. You have to have a attitude of acceptance, not tolerance. Unless you have the attitude of acceptance, if you have only the attitude of toleration, that I tolerate you, you are wrong, I am right, but I tolerate you, then it will not work. You have to accept every path as true, as different flowers, and combine them and offer a bouquet of worship. This Hinduism and Hinduism alone declared, and it is the oldest religion to declare this. No doubt other religions, other religious prophets, they have also declared, but their message was hidden, and the need is now to uncover that message. The true message of Christ, the true message of Buddha, the true message of all the different founders of religion have to be revived, as Swami Vivekananda revived the core principles, the eternal truth from within Hinduism and spread it all over the world. Then Sister Nivedita, and we will conclude with this next paragraph. After that, we will be discussing these things in the wonderful life which she has written, the Master as I saw him, every day on Monday from 7 to 8. So this is just an introduction, an introductory talk to that series of lectures, which in which Sister Nivedita has given the essence of her master, the master as I saw him. And she saw him as a woman from the West, a person, a human being from an alien culture, who could see him in a way no Indian would see, or no world citizen would see. She was one of the first to understand him, both from the Western eyes and from the Eastern eyes. Both the West and the East were represented by Sister Nivedita, as it were, when she wrote this book. That's why Swami Sarvasthananda and the other disciples, including Swami Brahmananda, asked her to write a biography of her master, because they felt that if she describes Swami Vivekananda, it will be a correct appraisal of this great twin personality of Ramakrishna Vivekananda. That's why she always used to write, signing a letter as Nivedita of Ramakrishna Vivekananda. You see, she always mentioned this at the end of her writing, at the end of her letter, Nivedita of Ramakrishna Vivekananda. So she concludes, not concludes, it's a very big talk, it's a very big message that she wrote, the Master and his message, which serves as a wonderful introduction to the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. And it has so many biographical details. So she says, of the Swami's address before the Parliament of Religions, it may be said, when Swami Vivekananda appeared at the Parliament of Religions, she says, it may be said that when he began to speak, it was about the religious ideas of the Hindus. Naturally, because he was expected to represent Hinduism, though he did not have a formal letter of introduction, somehow his genius was recognized by the professor of Harvard University, Professor J.H. Wright, and he gave a letter of introduction which enabled him to even participate, because every other representative to the Parliament of Religions had come with a letter of recommendation or letter of introduction from their own faith. But Swami Vivekananda just went there, not knowing that this was the requirement. And there was a doubt in the initial stages that he will be allowed to participate in this Parliament of Religions. So fortunately, he goes to Boston. There was time for the Parliament, and he was spending time meeting different people. And one of the professors of Harvard University in Boston is so much impressed by him, and he writes a letter to the Parliament, organizers of the Parliament, in which he writes that asking Swami Vivekananda for an introduction is like asking a sun for its right to shine. Asking a sun, what right do you have to shine? It's something like asking Swami Vivekananda for an introduction. He is more learned than all the learned professors put together. That introduction actually enabled him to speak. So when he spoke, Nivedita says, and first when he spoke in the Parliament of Religions, he was asked to speak on the religious ideas of the Hindus. That means Hinduism was just considered a religion, a minor religion perhaps, because the organizers thought there were other religions which were dominating the world at that time. So he was asked to represent Hinduism, just as many other people were invited, and many other sects of Hinduism also, including the Brahmo Samaj, which was represented by Pratap Chandra Mazumdar. There were many other. Dharmapala was representing Buddhism from Ceylon. There were other great scholars, but there were a galaxy of speakers, archbishops. There were different leaders of different sects of Christianity and other religions, Islam and other religions of the world, Zoroastrians, who were represented. So Swami Vivekananda, according to Nivedita, he started speaking on the religious ideas of the Hindus. That was what he was expected to do. But when he ended, this is something very significant. Sister Nivedita says, when he started with the religious ideas of the Hindus, but when he ended, Hinduism had been created. What does she mean by that? That means he was the prophet, a true prophet of Hinduism, who rescued Hinduism from the narrow, bigoted approach which the different sects in India had reduced Hinduism to. And they were quarreling mercilessly, quarreling with each other. Some people siding with their political masters, creating a hodgepodge reformation movements, trying to reform Hinduism. Everybody was so keen to reform Hinduism, what is going wrong, and trying to reform in their own way, in the process creating a wrong impression about Hinduism. So many sects were quarreling with each other, not tolerating each other. Leave alone tolerating other religions, they were not even tolerating the sects within themselves. That is what happens to most of the religions. It's not the outside influence that destroys the religion, it's the internal quarrel, the internal squabble within religious movements. The sects within each religion, the sects within Christianity, the sects within Hinduism, the sects within Islam, it is they who are at loggerheads with each other, each one claiming that they have understood the founder better than somebody else. Of course, Hinduism doesn't have a founder, but the attempt to make Hinduism universal was thwarted by many sects who tried to preach their own ideology and said, we are the true representatives of Hinduism. So Swami Vivekananda's role was to rescue Hinduism. So he had to create Hinduism. That is what Sister Nivedita says. Not that he gave these eternal values. Swamiji himself says, I am just saying what the Upanishads say, what the eternal principles of our Vedas say. The Vedas are our true religion. That is what he said. The eternal principles spelt by the rishis, whose search was after truth and truth alone. They spelled certain universal principles, gave it out to the world without any sectarian or dogmatic approach. It's a collection of the spiritual experiences, the universal spiritual experiences that had. So he says, I'm just recovering those. I'm trying to gather all the wonderful ideas, just as my master did. He lived the Vedas. He was a personification of the Vedas, and those ideas of the Vedas, as I understood it by the wonderful life of the master. That's why he says, I did not come to this country to preach my master. In the sense, he did not preach his master directly, because he felt that I don't want to create another sect, then which will quarrel with all other sects. It is an all-inclusive approach which he found in the master, who hated any kind of icon worship or iconoclastic reforms, as some of the popular reform movements in India did. The Brahmo Samaj, the Prarthana Samaj, the Arya Samaj, they were all iconoclastic reforms. They believed in certain values and they said this is the only way. That is not the way to reform. It is Swami Vivekananda created Hinduism in a different way. When Sister Nivedita says Swami Vivekananda created Hinduism, what she means is he brought out the core values of Sanatana Dharma, also known as Hinduism, and put it out before the world, which is all inclusive, which embraces in its encompass the remnants of the Israelis, as he said, the remnants of all the persecuted people on the earth. They have all gathered in India and they have found refuge. That is the greatness of Hinduism. So he says at that moment, the moment was ripe with potentiality. The vast audience, the 6,000 people, the vast audience that faced him represented exclusively the Occidental mind, the Western mind. Because the audience in America, in Chicago, they were not Indians. There may be a few Indian people here and there, but or Asian people there, but who might have come as delegates. But most of the people, the audience was exclusively an Occidental, a Western mind, but included some development of all that was most distinctive. Every nation in Europe had poured its human contribution upon America. So she says America had the potential to organize this because America represented the different countries of Europe. Irish people, British people, of course, and all the European countries, most of them have gone to America and settled there. Germans have gone. The entire Europe has poured its contribution upon America and notably upon Chicago, where the parliament was held. So she says it is safe to say that the best of the world, as well as some of the worst people of the world, they were all present there and they were all struggling. They thought this is an opportunity to establish our religion at the cost of others. But they were proved to be untrue. They were disappointed because Swami Vivekananda created such an impact by his universal message that don't think that the bell that tolled today is the death knell of all fanaticism. Had we listened to his message on 11th September, then this violence and conflicts in the world could have been avoided. He again and again said, the bell that tolled in the morning, the bell that tolled in the morning to inaugurate the Parliament of Religions, in his initial speech he says, should be a death knell, a sound that will remove all voices of intolerance and quarrel, sectarianism, bigotry, and persecution of one race upon one human being and one religion on the other, the persecution of the other, one religion of the others. So he says that is what Swami Vivekananda did. He got an audience, and it was the right kind of audience who had come with their own peculiar and dogmatic ideas, but they represented the entire world, as it were, because the heart of America or Chicago, where the parliament was held, comprised of these different cultures, these different nations, people from different ethnicities, people from different religions. They had all gathered, and this was the place. This was the very place where Swami Vivekananda chose, or rather his master chose. It was Sri Ramakrishna who pointed out to him to go to the west, and after getting the blessings of Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi, he decided to go to the west and spread this universal message of his master, or the universal message of Vedanta, Vedas, or Hinduism. And that is how he created such a great impact, because people were not expecting that. Everybody, including the organizers, were thinking that one religion will prove to be superior. But there he went and showed that here we are not here to quarrel. We are not here to assert the supremacy of our own sect, however great it may be. Here we have come for a synthetic religion, a universal religion, which will accept all religions as different paths to the same goal. And that is what he preached. So I will just see if there are some questions. We'll conclude today. We had a very nice celebration. We began with some very good songs today, some songs dedicated to Swami Vivekananda, some songs sung by Vivekananda. Unfortunately, there's no time to go into the meaning of those wonderful songs which were composed on Swami Vivekananda and also sung by him in front of Sri Ramakrishna. So I'm very grateful to all of you for joining this session. This session is there on YouTube live as well. Hopefully, you can, those who have missed it today because of some preoccupation, can watch it on YouTube live. All our sessions, and from next week it will be from now itself, it will be from Monday to Sunday, Monday to the next Sunday. Every day there will be one class or the other. One of them will be on Vedanta and one of them will be on yoga, the Raj Yoga of Swami Vivekananda, but all others are the life and message of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ma Sharda Devi and Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda's life as interpreted, as Nivedita saw it or recorded it, will be discussed from next Monday onwards. So now I'll just take up a few questions. There is the first question: what is the difference between tolerance and acceptance in universal religion? It is very obvious. Tolerance means I am right, you are wrong, but I tolerate you. The simplest difference is this: you are wrong, whatever be your ideology, whatever be your religion, you are wrong, I am right, my path is the only path or the correct path, but I would not hate you, or I would not trouble you, or I would not kill you for that reason. You survive, I tolerate you. You stay, you follow your path, but you are wrong. That is toleration. Acceptance means in universal religion that I accept your path as the valid path. Maybe I would even try to follow certain good things from your path if I feel I need some help. And I wish you, I don't have any hatred for you because I know you are following a different path. Swami Vivekananda gave a beautiful example that there is a circle and the points on the circumference, they will all meet at the center of the circle. They are different radii. Path may be different, but as they come nearer to the center, nearer to truth, nearer to God, all the differences will become less and less and less. And when it comes to the center, everything will vanish. So acceptance means allowing everybody on the circumference to go towards the center, and at the center we will all meet with that faith. That is acceptance, and otherwise it is tolerance. Tolerance is not a good solution to the world problem of hatred, of disharmony and quarrels. Tolerance will, it may temporarily help people not to kill each other or hate each other, but toleration means somehow it implies that a day may come when that tolerance limit will go away, the limit of tolerance, and then we'll start quarreling. But acceptance is totally different. Now, you got every right to accept or reject any idea, but you should tolerate others' ideas. Yes, rejection also, it is not that you have a right to accept or reject any idea. Definitely we have that right, but you don't have to spell it out. You may reject certain idea, but that is what toleration is all about. There should not be any rejection. If there is rejection, that means I don't trust you. That is not going to work. Our likes and dislikes, that's why I discussed this point in Raj Yoga, which is one of the most scientific approaches to truth, to nirvana, to moksha, to the goal of life, where you says your dislikes and likes should be kept to yourselves. You cannot impose your likes and dislikes on others. If the moment you try to do it, you are going away from the goal. You are going away from yoga. So we don't have any right to reject or accept anything. We have a right to reject or accept anything for ourselves. We can discriminate, but we can't take away the freedom of others to reject or accept what they feel is truth. So we have to give them that. So toleration is not the solution. Acceptance is the only way. That is what Swamiji says. So we will conclude. I once again thank all of you for participating Swamiji's Janmatithi celebration, and I conclude with a prayer to Swami Vivekananda. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.